going on, broskies? It is Lupus, and in today's video I'd like to talk to you guys about Battlefield Hardline and a question that many people have, whether they have played the beta or not. Are the graphics enough? Now, if you have not gotten your hands on the beta, I would definitely recommend trying to get into it. As far as I know, they opened it back up again, so you might be able to get a chance to get into it, such as I have. I was lucky enough to get into it on the first day, and I've been playing it since, and I want to talk to you guys about the graphics of the game, because it's no secret that the graphics look very different, but at the same time very similar to Battlefield 4, and because of those two factors right there, it gets compared to Battlefield 4 in several ways, and a lot of people think that it's a step backwards from Battlefield 4 graphically. Honestly, in my opinion, I think Battlefield Hardline has a little bit of a different style approach. I think they wanted to separate it in Battlefield 4 enough that it looked different, but still keeping it very similar so that it still looked like a Battlefield game, and it didn't stray too far off from what we have currently. Now, a lot of people think that the graphics in Battlefield Hardline are just awful compared to Battlefield 4, and the reason behind that is honestly that we have been spoiled. If you are a Battlefield 4 player, you have been spoiled by great graphics over the last couple years, because Battlefield 3 looked great, Battlefield 4 looked great, especially compared to their competitors, because DICE was way ahead of the game. With Battlefield Hardline's release, it's not as good as Battlefield 4, and since we have been spoiled with these great graphics from Battlefield 4, we don't see the good in Battlefield Hardline, and instead we focus on the drawbacks, such as the graphics being not near as good as Battlefield 4. Now, was this that much of a big deal? Honestly, to me, it doesn't seem to be. First off, Battlefield Hardline is in beta. In Battlefield 4's beta, the graphics were not final. The graphics changed a lot from the beta to the full game, and you can expect something very similar when Hardline goes from beta to full release. So, we will see some very big differences when the full game comes out, but I still don't believe that the graphics are going to be the same as Battlefield 4, because I don't think that's what they want. I think they want to separate this game visually as much as they can without changing the game completely from Battlefield 4. And a lot of people don't like this idea. Let's look at some of the pluses to Battlefield Hardline at this point compared to Battlefield 4. So far, Battlefield Hardline's beta is way smoother than Battlefield 4's beta, and way smoother than Battlefield 4 presently. And even in the CTE of Battlefield 4, it still has a lot of bugs, and Battlefield Hardline seems to capitalize upon what they have and make a pretty solid game. Now, the tick rate is still, as far as I know, 10. I don't believe it has been upped, and maybe 20, but the gameplay feels much smoother because the maps aren't as big, the effects aren't as massive as they are in Battlefield 4, so you don't have to worry about needing a massive tick rate for something like this. The tick rate that they had for Battlefield 3, which was 10, would work very well with Battlefield Hardline, which is what I believe they have at this point. So the game runs very smooth. There are a lot of new ideas that they threw in there that make the game very different from Battlefield 4, but a lot of people still think that the graphics in Battlefield Hardline are not as good as Battlefield 4's, and that makes it a bad game. But if you take everything that we have and put it up against everything that we don't have, you'll realize that this game focused more on gameplay than on visuals, which is a really big thing. My next question, which I said at the beginning, is, are the graphics enough? Now, I know everybody thinks that graphics are everything. When they look at a game, they look at how it visually looks, and if the game does not visually appeal to them or compare to something they've played in the past, they will no longer even look at it. They will put that game away, they won't even pay attention to it, they will not follow the game, and they will give up hope on that game entirely. And a lot of people seem to be doing that with Battlefield Hardline, and honestly, the game looks great, but a lot of people look at Battlefield 4 and think it looks better, and they don't give it a chance. And honestly, I believe the graphics look good, but a lot of people out there don't think that, and a lot of people think it just looks awful. When it doesn't look awful, it looks really good compared to other games. Now, I want to talk about one thing that I do believe the graphics do fall a little bit short. Now, while I don't really care that the graphics aren't that great, I focus more on the gameplay aspect. I do notice some issues with the graphics that do make it a little bit different and not as good as some Battlefield games visually in the past. When Battlefield 3 came out, it was one of the most visually advanced games of its time, and a lot of people loved playing it because the lighting was awesome, the textures were awesome, everything about it was really epic, and playing the game with all this destruction made it on an entire new level above everything else. And the reason behind that is Battlefield was predominantly PC based, so they had the ability to take advantage of that hardware and make the game look amazing. moving on to Battlefield 4, the next-gen consoles came out, and all those other game developers who were focusing on the last-gen consoles began to focus more on PC and next-gen hardware because that is what they were given. And when that happened, Battlefield 4 was still way ahead of the game because DICE was once again predominantly PC and already knew what it took to make a great game on the PC. The other games kind of fell behind. Call of Duty didn't look very good. A lot of other games didn't look as good as Battlefield 4. And with this next year coming, 2014, 2015, Battlefield Hardline is going to be swimming in a pool of sharks at this point because after seeing a lot of games at E3, the games are getting much better graphically. The guys have gotten a couple more years now, or have gotten another year on top of the couple years they had before to work with these next-gen hardware and get an idea for what it was going to be like, and have made some really graphically awesome games. A list of games like that I have seen are The Division, which is, in my opinion, one of the most graphically advanced games that we have at this point, as well as Rainbow Six Siege, which is a first-person shooter, new first-person shooter coming into the game, and it looks great. The graphics look really awesome, especially compared to Battlefield Hardline. Like, they both look really good, but Rainbow Six Siege is definitely coming up on there, and they're really showing what they can do. Another game, which I really am ashamed to say this, is Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. Now, I looked at the E3 trailer for that game because I always am open-minded with every game that I see at E3 and give everything a chance. And when I saw the trailer, I was in awe at the graphics. Now, the graphics weren't the most amazing I've ever seen in my life, but for a Call of Duty game, they were pretty damn amazing. And then comparing that to Battlefield Hardline, Call of Duty is stepping up their graphics game, I have to admit, and that's something that Battlefield Hardline should definitely worry about. Not because Battlefield Hardline is not going to be a better game, gameplay-wise, compared to Call of Duty. I think it is going to be something way funner to play, but visually, that might draw more people to Call of Duty just because it looks better, or it looks better than its predecessor compared, because Battlefield Hardline compared to Battlefield 4 doesn't look as good as Call of Duty Advanced Warfare compared to Call of Duty Ghosts, and that might draw people away or draw more people towards Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, which may be a big issue for Battlefield Hardline. Now, I don't think that that is everything, because I feel like the game and Battlefield Hardline's graphics look great, and there's just some people who are just spoiled by graphics we've had in the past. But at the same time, I do have to admit that Battlefield Hardline is no longer the best graphic game at show. They aren't showing off a Battlefield game that looks graphically better than everything else at the show, like with Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 3. At this point, we are seeing games that are very competitive when it comes to graphics against Battlefield Hardline, and if next year they don't step up their game, or if they don't improve the graphics between now, the beta, and the full release, then that could be a big deal for Battlefield. That is all for today's video. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you guys did, be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll love to hear opinions on the graphics for Battlefield Hardline in the comment section down below. But as always, this has been Lupus, and I will catch you guys in the next one.